Today we begin our unit on the Byzantine Empire and Russia. So we're going to look at how the Byzantine Empire eventually developed into Russia and then into the Soviet Union and back to Russia again. So first off, we have to start with the Byzantine Empire. The capital of the Byzantine Empire is Constantinople, and it's the city that is supposed to be the new Rome. If you remember, when the Roman Empire broke apart, it broke into Eastern and Western Rome. Well, Eastern Rome is going to be dominated by the Byzantine Empire, or becomes the Byzantine Empire, with its capital city at Constantinople. Now, trade routes were very important to this. There's silk that comes from China, wheat from Egypt, gems from India, spices from Southeast Asia, furs from the Vikings, and slaves from Western Europe. So there's a lot of trade that is taking place in the Byzantine Empire. It is very much a blending of cultures. You get the Greek and the Roman and the Christian and some Asian elements. So there's a lot of things going on in the Byzantine Empire. One of the first and major important people in the Byzantine Empire is Emperor Justinian. And Emperor Justinian was the emperor at the height of the Byzantine Empire, when it was probably at its most dominant part of its history. He brings about a revival of the Roman glory. He spares no expense. He uses money to redo Constantinople and make it look wonderful, glorious, all kinds of stuff. He is also going to expand the Byzantine Empire. He will conquer North Africa and get into Italy and parts of southern Spain. His buildings, he will beautify Constantinople by bringing in marble, colored marble, rose-colored marble, and grays and purples and stuff, and making everything very, very nice looking. He will build a church called the Hagia Sophia. And the Hagia Sophia is a church that has colored marble and silk curtains. It's like the epitome of grandness or grandeur. He also will bring about a code of laws called the Justinian Code. And it's a very effective system. It's very similar, or it has some similarities to Hammurabi's code of how you should behave. And people knew what Justinian's code was. His wife is named Theodora, and she is sort of like a joint ruler with him. She has just as much say as he does. Now, it's kind of interesting. She was the daughter of a bear trainer. She worked as a mime and an actress at the Hippodrome, and she was a wool spinner. But she is a pioneer of women's liberation, because she catches his notice and they get married, and she's able to do things. She passes laws that will outlaw forced prostitution. She's going to give more rights to women in divorce. She will pass a law that is death penalty for rape. If you are a rapist, you have the death penalty. So lots of things that she does to help out women in situations in the law. But she also helps out Justinian as well. She rules by his side, so she's an important factor as well. Well, at its height, the Byzantine Empire is going to suffer attacks from all sides. Everybody wants a part of it because it's successful. Everybody wants to be a part of that success. And so the Arabs are coming in, the Vikings are coming in, the Mongols are coming in, the Turks, all kinds of stuff. But Justinian is able to withstand because he has a very strong government and a prosperous economy, so he can afford to have a very good military to help protect. However, the Byzantine Empire will eventually go into a decline after Justinian's death. They will go on a crusade against the Turks, the Ottoman Turks, and the Ottoman Turks are going to attack Constantinople, and they actually win. And they defeat Constantinople, take it over as their own city. And Muhammad II, who was the emperor of the Ottoman Empire, is going to change the name of Constantinople to Istanbul, and that is what it is called today, Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia, that church that Justinian will beautify, becomes an Islamic mosque instead. So this is going to be the beginning of the rise of Russia. Now, Russia is a fairly large place. It has three broad regions. In the north it's very cold. It's a tundra region, very poor soil, lots of forests. It's often called Siberia, although Siberia is not all of it. But it's not a very nice place to be. In the middle is where you have the more fertile farmland, where most of the farming takes place, agricultural region. And in the south is more of an open grassland, kind of like a savanna region in a way, good for grazing, but not really for farming. Well, Russia will continue to grow as it gets an influx of several different people into it. Slavic people will begin to come into Russia. Germans will come into Russia. Vikings are going to come into Russia. So there's a lot of different groups that are going to start mingling together. Eventually, the Mongols will also begin to come in. The Russians call them Tartars. And so the Mongols come in. They're led by Genghis Khan. And his nickname's kind of like the World Emperor because he goes everywhere and he conquers everywhere. The Mongols' armies are going to enter Russia, and they're called the Golden Horde because the color of their tents was a golden color, and it was like they were a horde of insects coming in and taking over. They loot and they burn and they kill, and the Mongols eventually take over all of Russia. They prove to be very tolerant rulers. They do levy a heavy tribute, asking the Russian princes to pay them money or gifts, but the Russian princes, for the most part, are left to rule still in their areas without much interference by the Mongols, which makes sense because the Mongols are busy conquering everywhere else, so they didn't really want to spend a whole lot of time in Russia itself. So the Mongols are going to have a big influence in Russia. They're going to bring about peace. They set up new trade routes, but they also are going to influence some cultural things as well. They will bring in the isolation of upper-class women into separate quarters, sort of like a harem in a way. But the women were subjected to male authority. They couldn't make decisions on their own, which is very different from the time of Theodora and Justinian. Husbands even could sell their wives into slavery if they were displeased with them enough. Another influence brought in by the Mongols is going to be a centralized government power, this whole idea of absolute power of the government. And they are going to cut off contacts with Western Europe. They don't want anything to do with the French or the Germans or the Spanish or the English or anything like that. And so Russia is going to be cut off from those contacts, and they're not going to grow at the same pace as the rest of Europe. And in Western Europe, you see an increase in science and the arts during the Renaissance period, but the Mongols, because they cut off those contacts, they don't allow the Russians to have that sort of development. Now, Moscow was one of the principalities of Russia, so that means a prince is in charge of it. And it's an important trade route because it's located on a river. But they are the tribute collectors. They're the ones who collect the tribute to give to the Mongols. But they are also a spiritual center as well. The Russian Orthodox Church is centered in Moscow. And it's it's going to be from Moscow that some of the dissent is going to come, where they're going to want to fight off and get away from the Mongols. And so in Moscow is where the movement starts, and they actually put together a good fight, and they defeat the Mongols. The Mongols are kicked out. So then we get Ivan III, or Ivan the Great. And he is going to be the one who helps to recover Russian territory. But once he gains power, once he becomes the emperor, he is going to limit the power of the boyars. And boyars are land-owning nobles. And so he says, I don't need you buzzing in my ear telling me what to do. I'm the power. So that's one thing they did keep from the Mongols, that idea of absolute power. But he still wants to have them as advisors, but he doesn't want them constantly in his ear. It's at this point that they also create the title of Tsar for the Russian ruler. Instead of emperor, he's going to be Tsar. And that's the Russian word for Caesar. So it's kind of a throwback to the Roman Empire when we had Julius Caesar. And if you remember from Julius Caesar, Caesar means king. So Tsar means king. So we have Tsar Ivan III, which is King Ivan III. After him, we have Ivan IV, or Ivan the Terrible. He also believed in centralized royal power. He is going to get rid of even more privileges for the boyar families, but he's not called the Terrible for no reason. He is very unstable. He is prone to fits of rage. In fact, he will kill his own son in a fit of rage. Unintentionally, he wasn't trying to kill him, but he does because he gets so angry at him. He also is going to organize the Oprichniki, and these are secret police who will enforce his will and make sure that laws are being followed. But eventually Ivan IV is going to die, and his death is going to lead to a rebellion. because he killed his own son, so he doesn't have somebody to take over after him. So his own fury is what leads to further problems for his people. So the time period between 1604 and 1613 is called a time of troubles because there is this huge dispute over succession. Who's going to take over next? There's uprisings left and right. On top of that, there's going to be foreign invasions because everybody's basically looking at Russia at this time and saying, hey, they're kind of vulnerable right now. Let's go take their stuff. So you got foreign invasions going on and uprisings among the people as well as uprisings among the nobility. And eventually they make the decision, hey, we've got to find a czar somewhere, and the new czar is going to be chosen. And it is 17-year-old Michael Romanov who is going to be placed as the new czar, and he will establish the Romanov dynasty.